Are you ready for the truth? Bring it on!
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth? I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Showing my ugly? Is that what happens when you say, yeah, when I look at a particular leader and the policies they're putting out, and I can't deny at some point that I question what they believe. But there is humility in that, and recognizing I don't know what's in somebody's heart, and I recognize it exists on the other side too. Pretty involved conversation, but a good one, as always, with Pastor Aaron Free. Before that, our good friend Jerry Boyer. That's last hour right here on AFR Talk, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. How's your Thursday night going? You all right? Are you ready? Ready for Friday, yeah. Ready for the Cards to beat the Dodgers? What? Hey, you're not even really a baseball fan, are you? Oh, no, but I like when they win, and when they get in the playoffs, I just don't follow it. No, I was watching the ESPN 30 for 30. Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard. Caught the last part of that. That was really cool. I'm a huge boxing fan. Huge. And it was funny because Sugar Ray Leonard was speaking to the idea of letting things go and being honest. And he mentioned his experience with alcoholism and how when he got honest, he let things go, he grew. And when you don't, you stay in the same place and you're battling it. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. Oh, thanks, Pastor Crane. No, that's what do you think he wants? He wants you to stay there. He wants to distract you. He doesn't want you to grow. He doesn't want you to use your godly gifts to the fullest. He doesn't want you to use them all. He wants to turn them in on yourself and make it all about your works. He wants you to forget grace. Quite frankly, it is evident when you look at one's life, especially when you see somebody in their prime physically, and as they get older, and then there's more of a record, and that's what we do. We look at the record. They're fruits. And you say, you'll know them by their fruits. Okay, well, there's a lot of things I know. Yet we do pray for the president. For the record. Pray for the president. Pretty much every day, Catherine and the kids, family, in some way. And I'll get emails to say, Crane, you're not a Christian. What kind of Christian are you? You're talking about ending Medicare, ending Social Security. My child needs this particular government program to make sure she gets the care she needs, and you want to end that. You're not compassionate. And what I was getting at with Aaron was, okay, well, there are times where you'll have people on both sides within the body of Christ disagreeing and saying they're on the side of God. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad debate. I think it gets really messed up when you start saying you're not a Christian because of that. I guess there's always lines. There's degrees in everything. And in this way, that's probably crossing the line. Recently, with the debt deal, we've had people who have been called all sorts of names, cowards. They're afraid. They're the establishment. I've used the term establishment, and I will stick with it. But what I hear back and forth is that we're all on the same page, at least conservatives are, on getting rid of Obamacare. Now, immediately, some of you on the left are going to say, Crane, you want to get rid of health care? No, I want to get rid of Obamacare. Listen to me, please. And he calls it Obamacare. President Obama does, okay? Signature achievement. Dubious distinction. And you say this and want to get rid of Obamacare, and people try strategies to do that. Where's the line drawn there? Then, well, you got the debt ceiling coming up, and that was as it was approaching, by the way. We're through it now. But just to give you an idea of where we're going here, this has been a strategy, and the strategy did not work. And part of the reason this strategy did not work was there was not a unified voice on the conservative side or the Republican side, if you want to classify it that way. That's because they're not all conservative. I get it. So what's the line where you start calling somebody out? Because they could be just expressing their deeply held beliefs. And why are their beliefs any better or worse than your beliefs if they're speaking up? I'll tell you where the line is for me. If you're against Obamacare and you see people going out and explaining why they're doing things, and you have the opportunity to explain, for example, the House is passing all these bills and only 85% of the government's closed, and you recognize, because it doesn't take a Rip and Einstein to recognize, that the president and those on the left were stirring up fear, talking default, trying to shake Wall Street. By the way, they also had to make a choice not to advance a piece of legislation that was in the House that didn't get a vote in the Senate. They had to make that choice. Now, if you're on the side to defund Obamacare, my question is, why would you ever start ripping the people who are outing Obamacare for the destruction it has? Because you disagree with their strategy, so you've got to take shots at them. Meanwhile, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to sit there and you're going to be moved over and embrace a side that is going to make it much more difficult to ever overturn Obamacare. And if you really were against Obamacare, how on earth couldn't you get with the program when the individual mandate and suspending that for a year? Why'd you have to start ripping the motives behind it and referring to them as terrorists? Yet I heard somebody refer to, that was about Syria and the support for rebels and Al-Qaeda. Yeah, I thought that was a overstep, but I understand in the line of thinking. Okay. Follow me here. You have Obamacare. It's destructive. That's what this is all about. Different strategies. You had Coburn saying, I'm not going to go with the defund strategy. I don't believe in it. I don't think Coburn is somebody who's not courageous. I think he's a courageous guy. I think he means what he says. He believes in what he's doing. He may not support that strategy, but I didn't really hear him start ripping to the point of what I saw from John McCain. See, I think McCain crossed the line. I think Peter King crossed the line. And they actually bought into the idea of, hey, we're going to scare everybody and not mention the choice that the Democrats were making. They were telling one side of the story. Crane, you do that all the time when it comes to the right. You do that all the time with conservatism. Actually, I do tell the story of conservatism, but I put it in the context of what it's against, in the sense of policy, what it opposes, how it differs. And I use examples of what has worked and what doesn't work. Facts, context, history. Did we try it before? Try it again. Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, on with Mike Lee last night on a little show called Hannity. I kid. Hannity is amazing. I saw this clip and what he said. I said, you've got to hear this. Ted Cruz on what happened. Roll it.
And the problem was that we did not have others in the conference coming forward supporting those compromises. You know, if you think about it, the House Republicans marched into battle. They exercised tremendous leadership, tremendous courage, and it should have been the Senate Republicans riding like the cavalry to support them. If the Senate Republicans had stood united with the House Republicans, that's how we would have won this fight. Instead, unfortunately, the Senate Republicans were divided and became basically an Air Force, dive bombing the House Republicans and conservatives, and once that happened, there was no way to hold the line with the American people and to actually achieve meaningful relief from all the harms coming from Obamacare.
Can you disagree? Even if you disagree with Ted Cruz, can you disagree with what that man said? Well, he called it the Surrender Caucus. I remember that. Those are names back and forth. Yeah, I get it. It was actually an aide of his, if I'm not mistaken. But nevertheless, if you oppose Obamacare, even if you don't support the strategy, will you just expose the fact that you're not only on the right side of things, and you may disagree with the strategy, but the president and the Democrats had to make a choice too? Now, this has been classified as a victory for the president. It is because he has the biggest megaphone, I would say, in that short-term way. As I put it, Obamacare wins and America continues to lose. But as I look at the president's response to this and the tactics that were used, I grow more and more disappointed with those who are opposing the policies of this administration. I'm not going to call them names, but they should be exposed for where substantively they let down. You mean to tell me the barricades actually cost more money? Yeah. The Gateway Pundit, by the way, he's back. And thanks you for keep praying for him. He's recovering still, but he exposed the fact that it costs more for the barricades. You heard Trey Gowdy last night, and Representative Micah talked to the Park Service director about closing that open-air memorial. We also have heard the stories of making it hard as possible. Why wasn't that the story? How a president manipulated the power, used it, punished people he disagreed with, all in the game to not recognize he had a choice too. Was it a bad strategy? Hindsight 2020? I guess it was. But a strategy is a fluid situation as you're advancing it. It would have been a great strategy if people would have gotten behind it and come unified and said, hey, look, give the vote in the Senate. Get the vote in the Senate on this. Let's have the vote. And that's why Ted Cruz was doing his quasi-filibuster. Mocked for that. Oh, he's doing it for political gain. He's doing it for political gain. Oh, just put a sock in it. Really? Political gain? Who's not doing it for political gain? Because political gain is actually having the power and the influence to advance an agenda. So I think they're all doing it for political gain. Thank you. Oh. And as I look at the substance of the argument, I continue to come back to what they were advancing. It's amazing that President Obama and the left has won this battle, and I think in the sense of the mainstream media carrying their water, their backs have got to be tired, but nevertheless, carrying their water, along with some on the Republican Party side, carrying the water for the administration. Yeah, I guess they look like they've won to a point, but not really in the polls. Not really long term. Because America is not saying, I like Obamacare, it's really good. In fact, President Obama's not even saying that. Heritage Foundation today released a study about the premiums going up and broke it down for age male or people 27 or older and what their premiums are going to increase, what percentage. We have a story that they went with the flawed software, which is fatally flawed, reportedly. That means they're going to have to scrap the entire system, not just fix the glitches, because they wanted to hide the cost. They didn't want the cost to be seen without the subsidies. So they had to get all the information first to see if it qualified for subsidy. You follow me? They had to qualify for the subsidy. Ovik Roy, great piece, I believe in Forbes, where you can see the Jerry Boyer piece as well. Ovik Roy, Manhattan Institute scholar. Now, what I'm getting at is, well, it's pretty clear where you're going. Is it? Because the question could be, where do we go from here and what do we do? I love what Jerry Boyer said. Hey, we haven't even begun to fight. We haven't even stepped into the fight because we're not using a biblically based argument, a Christian-based argument. You can't just speak to the economics without basing it on our faith. So, as this continues and people pile on, what is this? I love this one. And you hear things like this from Martin Bashir of MSNBC. Granted, I mean, MSNBC has Al Sharpton. He gave him a show. Ed Schultz. Al Sharpton. Yeah, are you ever going to apologize, by the way? Are you ever going to apologize for being what you are? A race hustler? And look at your record. Are you going to do that? You can put on a suit, but it doesn't change what you do. I can put on a suit and people say, hey, I did this and I didn't apologize for it. Look at your record. MSNBC. Stay classy. So, you have Martin Bashir calling Ted Cruz, or asking if Ted Cruz is the David Koresh of the Republican Party. Roll it.
McKay, do you think Ted Cruz is a bit like the David Koresh of the Republican Party? He's a bit like a character who believes himself to be anointed, believes himself to be a prophet, ignores everything and torches the place in the process.
You always come to me with these excellent comparisons that get me in trouble with Republican sources afterwards. No, I mean, I think, look, you know, Ted Cruz, there are two lines of thinking on
Is he the David Koresh of the Republican Party?
Well, there are two lines.
You destroy the party by sticking up for what you believe in and having other members of your party pretty much bail and join in the name calling without highlighting the entire story or giving context to what you are doing. Yeah, that's it. Oh, and then they can play, we're the adults. You're the adults that got us into 16.9 trillion, 7 trillion of it President owes. Washington to Bush, more President O. And I know you were fighting the good fight. You were unified in those first couple of years. But in this way, once things were breaking down, they say, well, you took the focus off Obamacare going down. Do you mean to tell me you think the mainstream media would have focused all on that? I heard a great point today on the 5. Did they focus on Benghazi? It was on in the background. I almost wish I didn't hear it because then I would probably come up with myself. And then, but anyway, I want to credit it. Are they focusing on Benghazi? Are they focusing on the IRS scandal? I mean, they could tie the IRS scandal into punishing the enemies like President Obama did, just in the way that he did sequester, just in the way that he did the shutdown, the slim down, 85% of the government. Were they saying that every time? Well, only 85% of the government's shut down. And while it is, we always want people to have the ability to get their paychecks, which they are going to do, we recognize the importance of this because of how destructive Obamacare is. No, I don't agree necessarily with the strategy, but I do understand it, and I do support the end of Obamacare. How difficult is it to say that? You're not compromising your values by saying that. Let's get the adults into the room. The adults in the room. Really? Okay. It's adult. Intergenerational theft is adult. Funny, when people actually try to reform, they always say, I want a reformer. In movies, in Hollywood, and in the concept of a hero. standing up, taking that risk. But in the world of Washington, when you do it, what happens if it's not some growing government program that you're embracing? If it's the government not fixing it, and by the way, a lot of destruction on the government side, we're going to be doing something in this very segment tomorrow night that's extraordinary, because you're going to hear some things from Saul Alinsky, some things you've probably never heard before, certainly not on air, here on Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. And we're going to break it down. We even have a little Uncle Milton Friedman there for you. The point is this. When somebody actually tries to reform, what happens? You want to throw Granny off the cliff. You want to poison children with water in their arsenic. And by the way, the press has access to Tad DeHaven over at the Cato Institute with his information about downsizing government and what the cost would be and what the cut would be, and how half of America's children are getting free milk through WIC. I mean, we're talking about programs that have grown outside their zone. For every job President Obama's created, he can take credit for 2 people receiving welfare. 2 more. And interestingly enough, when you bring up those stats, they even go racial on you there, which is absolutely, I gotta say it, asinine. When you try to reform the people that are called Mavericks, like John McCain, a man who's not a fan of the First Amendment, by the way, look at the bipartisan campaign finance reform that he passed and that got struck down, elements of it. And look at that. Just take a good look at people that are called Mavericks, and then you have a Maverick who says, I'm not going to play this game anymore. This is tremendously destructive. This is out there. I'm going to make a stand. Now, don't start worshiping him. What I do is I look at the policy being advanced. I say, I can agree with that, and I can get behind that because I agree with the policy and I agree with the point he's making. Of course, you've got Nancy Pelosi, and you'll have to hear that tomorrow. So we'll have some of that for you tomorrow. So, has President Obama won this? Let me ask you this. Obamacare, still a failure? Yeah. Economy still in the tank? Yes. President Obama got a delay. We're going to have the same battle. Were the sequester cuts reinstituted or pulled back? No. So who won? The game is still going. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Live the honor in your life, compassion in your heart, and always keep the faith in Jesus Christ. Know that God knows you, God loves you. He created you. And you're worth it. AFR Talk.